Hello VB users, thank you for choosing ProVB. Today we're going to go over the newsletter software that ProVB offers. If you take a look at the description here, you'll see that this newsletter software is, in short, just a way to keep your members updated on what's going on your website, kind of remind them why they registered there in the first place, keep them up to date, periodically send them emails on what's going on, and just be able to do so in a stylish manner instead of just sending your members plain Jane, plain text emails. You'll see that we have a feature to include recent topics, newest members, latest news, featured posts, a featured poll, and so on and so forth. If you take a look at the newsletter page, you'll see that all these widgets are shown in a nice and styled way, and this is actually very similar, if not exact, to exactly what you're going to get pretty much in the email that you're going to receive. If you take a look at the email here, both on Gmail and on Windows Outlook, you'll see that both of them show exactly with the same exact colors that they do on this page, the same exact data, and it's live email, folks. Now we'll come back to this later once we understand exactly how all this works. If you go ahead and you take a look at your admin CP, you're going to have three options that automatically appear once you install this product. You're going to have a link to the newsletter itself. You're going to have a link to all the options that the newsletter comes with. And then you're going to have a link to send the newsletter. Now, on the newsletter itself, this is just basically if you want to go ahead and see what's going on live, you could go ahead and link your members to this page. Normally, it's only linked in the admin CP, so only you could see it. But we do make it so that if you want to link your members to it, you could always go ahead and do so. And then the really important part here, of course, is the options. We have a series of options that you could edit to be able to customize your newsletter. Like I said before, we have 5 modules. We have a functionality in order to be able to change templates, and we have quite a few other features that we could all be able to control within this one page. So if you take a look at the first option, we have the newsletter email. The newsletter email is basically the email that it's going to show when you send a newsletter. We have ours set to norespond@provb.org to kind of give them the message that there's no point in responding because it's just an automated email anyway. And then we have our newsletter subject, just sent to community forum newsletter. The letter heading message is what you see here. You could change that to whatever you want. You could put plain text, you could put HTML, really doesn't matter. Then the newsletter template is the template that it's going to show by default when you load the page up. Not only is it going to be the template that shows by default when you load the page up, but it's also going to be the template that members get when you send out a newsletter. You see we have ours set to 2 column. If I go ahead and I change it to 3 column and I view the newsletter, of course it's going to show us 3 columns. Let's change that back to 2 because that's the one we like. Now, with this pretty self-explanatory, you wanted to take up as much as it could, so we're going to set that to 100%. The amount of recent threads to show, that affects both the news and the latest threads. If you have it set to 10, then it'll show the latest 10 items for the news and the latest 10 items for the overall forum. Moving on from that, we have excluded forums. Now, this is a big one you might want to pay attention to. A lot of people freak out over this because they kind of overanalyze the situation. All this is a means of being able to block certain forums from this list. Only this list, the latest threads list. If you want, say you have a forum for only your staff and you don't want those threads showing in here, then you enter that forum ID. If you have more than one forum, you separate the forum IDs by a comma. Now, keep in mind that even if you forget to enter anything here and a thread shows here, if the user clicks it and they don't have access to it, they're still going to get an error message. They're not going to be able to see it, so you have nothing to worry about. It's just a matter of being able to make sure you limit it so that, you know, actual data that they can access, that everyone can access, is what's being shown. Now, the news forum ID is just simply the forum in which this box comes from. You pick one forum, you enter the ID, and it pulls the latest threads from that forum. Then you have the newsletter poll ID for the featured poll. I'll show you guys how to get the poll ID. A lot of people freak out on this one. It's actually very easy. If you go to the page where the poll's on and you just click to edit the poll, you'll see that the address bar actually tells you the poll ID. It says poll ID equals, and in this case poll ID equals 1, so the poll ID is 1. Now, newsletter profile field, All this is a means of being able to allow users to either submit or not submit to your email, subscribe or not subscribe rather. So right here you'll see we have it set to field 5. If you've never used your profile fields, go to the profile field manager. It's the same function VB uses to get your bio and location and whatnot. We already made the submit to newsletter profile field, but we'll show you guys how to do it anyway. If you click add new user profile field, you want to go to single selection. You could do a radio or a menu. A menu is pretty much what you see here, a little drop down, and a radio would just be the a radio is pretty much this. Yes or no, that's a radio. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna go with the radio, and what we did was we put yes, no, and then I think we named it subscribe to our newsletter, and then we want to make it so that this shows at the registration and also profile updating. This way members could always opt whether or not they want to subscribe. And then we also go ahead and make sure that it's set as a private field, which it is by default. And we don't want to show it on the member list just because of the fact that it's really nobody's business whether or not somebody's submitted to that. And we definitely don't want it searchable either. So if you go over here, you'll see that we already have that set up. Subscribe to our newsletter, submit to newsletter. It's called field 5, the one that we had set up earlier. So if you go back to our options, you'll see that we have that set to field 5. And then the next option, all this is the option that you made that you want to be able to trigger the newsletter to be sent. In this case, we had yes and no, so we make yes the option that it needs to be selected to in order for members to be able to receive this. So if you are Spanish, for example, and your options are C and no, your option here, rather the value you'd put here, would be C. And then over here in the profile field manager, you'd want to go ahead and make sure that your options say C and no. For those guys that weren't aware, ProVB is good with their Spanish. Now, moving on, newsletter featured topics. We have thread IDs separated by a comma. In other words, what we do here is we simply enter the featured threads that we want to be shown right here. The featured threads are usually the main highlight of the page. It's pretty much where all the focus is if you go to any of the pages. It's always right there, smack in your face. So you want to make sure you get a good post to be shown here. In this case, we just talk about our newsletter in the featured post. So we set the thread ID. If you guys don't know how to get the thread ID, it's the first few numbers that show right here. In this case, it's 1566. 1566 is what we entered. Then you can opt whether or not you want your avatar to show on the featured post. I have an avatar showing right here. And of course, again, if you want to enter multiple featured posts, we only have one, but it would just be a matter of going like this, then entering something else, and so on and so forth. Then the amount of members that you want to show, we have 9 showing. We could show their avatars or not show their avatars. If not, it'll just show their username. And then finally, the thread character limit. If you notice right here, it cuts off these thread titles at approximately 35 characters. We don't want long threads cutting into the usernames. You know, sometimes a mixture of long thread titles and long usernames could mean that this could clog up, so we kind of want to limit one or the other. And I'm sure the members would much rather limit the thread titles, huh? Moving on from there, if you go to send community newsletter, this is how admins send newsletters. This is how you send newsletters in bulk. On this page, all this is for you to be able to send yourself a newsletter. For you to actually send it to all the members, you want to go here. You have an option to enable how many you want sent per cycle. Sometimes this may be a matter of your host limiting how many you're allowed to send, so you may want to consult them. Or if you're good to go, you can put as many as you want in here. Then you have the specific user groups that you could enter. You could enter multiple user group IDs or just one user group ID even, and it'll only send to that user group. So for example, if you want to send a newsletter out to only your staff, configure all the options, enter your staff ID here, and it'll only send to your staff. You have a save issue while sending. What this does is we kind of have an archive function where you could select an issue and past issues will be shown here. You see that we had done a test issue previously and it shows right here. and then you'd have to click yes, of course, other than just entering the title. And then you have send mode. The reason we have send mode is because a lot of people freak out before they send the newsletter, and they kind of want to see who it's going to send to before they send it. For example, if they're sending one for staff, let's say, they want to make sure that it's only going to go to staff. So we have what's called test mode, so that you could go ahead and just see who it'd be getting sent to without the emails actually being sent. So that's pretty much how this works. You could go ahead and send multiple emails at a time. You could send to various user groups, all user groups, only one user group. You could go ahead and save your issues, archive your issues here, and everything's configurable through the options. And now for the grand finale, of course, you guys want to know how it's going to look on an email client. Let's pull up that email on Outlook. You'll see it on Outlook looking 100% crisp. And you'll see it also on Gmail looking equally perfect. And there you have it. That's the community newsletter product, and it's available for both VB4 and VB3. We've been selling it for VB3 for quite some time. It's actually one of our major products with VB3. And we're definitely going to be planning some new releases within the next few months. We're getting all of our products upgraded to VB4 this month, so hopefully you should be hearing a lot more from us. Take care and have a good day. Hope you guys enjoyed the video.